Hello everyone, thank you very much for joining me on another episode. And this week I'm going to be showing you guys and walking you and doing a full walkthrough RODI mixing station, RODI bins, as well as the salt bins. And lastly, probably the most important, the auto rewind hose reel. The main purpose of this video, a lot of people have asked me to kind of do a walkthrough, what I'm using, where I bought it. More importantly, to give you guys some ideas on how you can replicate a system like this on your own. So although I may not be giving you guys a full parts list on everything, because a lot of this stuff I actually bought from a local plumbing store that I have here that actually sells Spears Schedule 80. But I will give you guys some ideas on where you can purchase it and probably the best option that'll work out for you. So without wasting any more time, let's get right to it. So first and foremost, I want to cover why you may want a mixing station. For you guys that are wondering what in the heck is a mixing station, why do you need one, can I get away without one? So I guess one of the first questions, can you get away without a mixing station? The answer to that is absolutely. I've been reefing for what, three and a half years already. This is my first time ever having a mixing station. So yeah, you can totally get away without having one, just given you may have to have buckets, mixing buckets, brew containers, so on and so forth to house some of your RODI water, as well as your either pre-mixed or when you're ready to mix some salt water as well. In simplest form, a mixing station just kind of is, as the name suggests, it houses RODI water that's produced from the RODI system, goes into this container here. From here, we're able to throw water into the salt mixing bin, which is here. So all the water that is in here is actually salt water, and from this point it's ready to leave into the main tank. Now you could certainly empty it out through the bibs on the end here and here. Personally, I've done a video on this before. I have the automatic hose reel, which allows me to unwind the hose and take it all the way to the tank. So we'll give you guys a rundown on how everything works, how they kind of work together as a team to make all the magic happen. So the heart of the mixing station is your RODI system. In my case, I started with this one here on the left. It was only these three in the membrane. That's actually what the JBJ started with. I've had this system here for what, 3 years already, and you could see when I got it, it was just a 4-stage. I did go with a bulk resupply. Why I went, I think at that time when I read reviews, I realized a lot of people recommended the bulk reef one. They said the filters they use, the resins they use were a lot better quality. So I said, you know what, at that time I was a new reefer. I just wanted to go with what I knew people were having great success with. After the 3 years I've had it, zero complaints, zero leaks, no problems whatsoever. So is it something I'd recommend? Absolutely. I haven't had a problem with it. There is others on the market. There's cheaper ones on the market. I really can't speak for them because, again, I haven't used them. I can't say with certainty I haven't had any problems with this. One good thing I found out when I got a bigger system, I at the time didn't know you can build your RODI system bigger. So I've currently made this in 7-stage RODI system, as well as doubled the water production by adding a second membrane. So we're now making 150 gallons per hour. Added a booster pump to make sure all the filters work efficiently, specifically the membrane. So with the booster pump, I think I'm getting about 85 PSI. I can actually get it higher than that, but I regulated it down. You can totally regulate it with the little screw. We are running 2 membranes. Starting off here, we're running a 1 micron sediment filter. Reason I run the 1 micron, yes, it gets dirtier quicker, but I feel it filters out a lot more impurities. Next, we actually are running 2 carbon blocks specifically targeted towards chloramines. Here where I live, they use chloramines in the water, so I certainly don't want that going into the reef tank. After that, we have DI mix beds. Here, there's a total of 3. I know what you guys are saying. Bulk Resupply did a video. They recommend running cation, anion, and the last one being mixed bed. I'll probably do another video as to why I'm doing all 3 of them mixed beds. Long story short, it produces cleaner water. I did a little bit of research, talked to a few people that have actually performed ICP tests, and they found, even though the TDS meters read 0 TDS. That's only part per million, not part per billion. I'll probably save another video for that. I don't want to confuse you guys too much. But yeah, this is what I would call the heart of your mixing station. If you skimp out on an RODI system or don't have enough filtration going on, you're going to have really bad stuff going in your reef tank. You're going to be dealing with hair algae, a bunch of algae, a bunch of nuisance stuff that really you don't have to deal with. That's it for the RODI system. Up next is the utility sink. The reason I installed this, obviously you don't need this, and you don't need this to operate a mixing station, but I just have it here. It's a nice place for me to clean my skimmer, clean everything related to the tank so I don't get any of that nasty stuff in my main sink inside the house. From the RODI station here is we need to get water into the RODI container, which is this one here. The way that's done is very simple. The wires are kind of hidden, but they come out through here and they connect through a float valve that's on the inside. I actually purchased it on Amazon. Once the float valve gets full, it obviously lifts, just like the toilet, it lifts and then it stops the RODI system to stop making water, thus not overfilling. When it comes for a lot of the equipment, I'll go through it real quick. For the tanks, I really can't give you guys links to where I bought it because unless you live in San Diego, they don't ship. And even if they were to ship, if you guys do any research of these tanks online, the tanks themselves are about 150 bucks. Shipping is anywhere from $200 to $300, so it's really not worth it. My best recommendation for you guys that are interested in probably getting the tanks is give Den Warthog a call and just try to find some local distributors. Try to find someone local to you that distributes tanks, and maybe you can get your hand on one of those. Both of these here are 55-gallon tanks, and really that's going to depend on the size of your tank. Generally speaking, I want my salt bin to be able to do about 2 to 2.5 water changes at any given moment, and that's kind of how I came up with the size. You could go smaller. I could have probably gotten away with 30-gallon if there was that much of a space constraint, but for me there wasn't, so I went with the 55s. Now another great option to purchase, not these exact tanks, but ones that are very similar and just as good, are from Tractor Supply. Tractor Supply actually carries them. They're a little bit more expensive. They're about $199, so about 40-50 bucks more, but you know, at least you can get your hand on them. So if you do have a Tractor Supply local to you, maybe they don't have the exact tank, but I'm sure you can totally order it and not be hit with the big shipping cost. I've already done a video on the stand itself. I've shown it. Not sure if you guys were able to see that video, but you can go back and check it out. You can see it's just 2x4 with the piece of plywood on the top. I made it high enough to store my Tropic Marin salt on the bottom. Now getting into a plumbing, I'd love to give you guys links to the plumbing, but the plumbing I actually purchased from a local hardware store here that carries Schedule 80 spears. I will tell you, you do not need to do Schedule 80. I just went overkill. I mainly only went with Schedule 80 because the great color. You could totally go with Home Depot and save yourself a lot of money, because trust me, just in plumbing here, there's quite a bit of money. You don't need to go that route. I just wanted the color blue. I wanted the color gray. So that's why, you know, I had to pretty much pay the money. I'm sure if you have a Lowe's, a Home Depot, or just a hardware store that sells plumbing, I guarantee you they have all these fittings. Now, I wouldn't copy the exact size I'm running. It's all 1 inch, and then it steps down to 3/4, because that's going to depend on the pump you are running. Unless you're running my specific pump that outputs 1 inch, then you're going to be able to use what I'm showing here. But again, you can totally apply what I'm be talking about, what I'm be running down, to match whatever plumbing, whatever size, diameter the pump you're running is going to be. I know when I first saw mixing stations, I was super afraid of them. Not afraid, but just intimidated. Seeing all this plumbing and all this piping and having no idea how it works. I'm gonna do my best in this video to explain to you guys how it works. With each of the tanks, we want a way to feed water out so we don't need the pump running to throw water out. In other words, use gravity to our advantage. Both tanks are able to be drained via gravity. You can see here. So at any given moment, without having any power whatsoever, I'm able to drain the tank via gravity. That's then very simple. Coming out from the bulkhead, we tee it off. Obviously one side would go to the pump. That's what the valve here is for, to close it off. The other side would just come straight down. I used a 45, a ball valve, and another 45 to make a straight 90 from the tank, and obviously replicated the same on this side. And you're able to see, you can either put a barb on one side, or you can, use something like this. Whatever works for you, you can totally do. That's also why I really like these ball valves because they have unions on either end, and I can unscrew the union, replace them, do maintenance, whatever I need to do. You can actually see I have quite a bit of unions throughout this whole setup, and the main reason for it is just for ease of maintenance. So now this is where all the magic happens. Before we continue talking about the plumbing, I want to talk about the pump. The pump I'm using is a Sicce Syncra 7.0, which pushes about 1,900 gallons an hour, just shy of 2,000. It does more than enough job to mix the water in here, as well as shoot water to my tank through this automatic hose reel, which we'll talk about a little bit later. The main reason I really like this pump because it's Wi-Fi controllable. So when I'm at the tank and I need to shut off the water, I don't need to come back here to touch the controller. I just log into my phone, shut off the pump, and I'm done. Another great feature I liked about the Sicce pump is they're able to give you a temperature readout directly on your phone. So the pump has a temperature sensor on the inside, which gives you temperature. It may not mean anything to you right now, but trust me, when you're mixing salt water, I don't have to stick my hand in there with a probe or something to check temperature. I just log into my app and I'm able to see the temperature of the water. So now continuing on, we're gonna break this down in a few different scenarios. So let's say I wanted to fill water from the RODI bin to the salt bin here. Now the way that's achieved, it's very simple. You're gonna see here how the plumbing works. So with all the valves closed, I'm not gonna open it because I don't want water flowing through, but I would open this valve, turn on the pump, and then from that point, the water would come through here, hit the pump, shoot straight up, and go into the tank. Obviously, once it's filled to whatever volume I want it, I would go ahead and shut it off. And by shutting it off, we've shut off the pump, shut off the valve, and shut off this valve, and then we have water inside this tank. Now from that point, we could add salt, and then once you add the salt, you're gonna need to mix it, right? So you're probably saying, how do you mix it? Well, if you kind of pay attention to how I show you guys the diagram to flow water in here, I'm sure you can start to get an idea. So the first thing we would do is we would open this valve here, open this valve here, and from that point, you can actually see how it all flows in a nice circle. You see that? And then from that point, we're able to mix the water within this tank. So if you're someone that doesn't have an automatic hose reel and you just take water to your tank via buckets, you'd be done here. That's all you would need to do as far as plumbing, because just imagine this was a bigger bucket. You'd come here, you'd open this bad boy up, and that would allow you to start getting salt water, take your buckets to your tank, and you're done. Now, if you're someone like me and you want to set up either an automatic hose reel or just a hose reel that doesn't have an auto rewind, you would have to add another step. And that's actually what this valve here is for. If it wasn't for the reel, you don't need this valve. The only reason this valve is here is to close the water. So let's step back and show you guys. So let's create another scenario. Let's say I want to do a water change, right? In my tank, which I don't like to carry buckets, we would, once this water reaches temperature and it's mixed, we would take water from in here, open up this valve. We would close this valve here because we do not want the water recirculating. So we would close that valve, but we would open this valve here. So this valve, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So from that point, that valve is going to control the output to here. So the water would come here, it'd go past this valve, go into the pump, shoot up, and then go straight back here and then to the hose reel. Now this part that you guys are seeing here, it's nothing crazy. It's a sediment filter, essentially the same thing that we use on our RODI bins. The reason I do that, no matter what salt you get, I'm not saying Tropic Marin is dirty. It's actually never been dirty for me. But in my head, I just feel really comfortable knowing that there's a sediment filter there, picking up any impurities in the salt. I mean, the salt is an organic rock. It's mined. I'm pretty sure they don't get every single bit of stuff out of it. Not saying there's bad stuff in it. I'm just saying there is probably some organic material, that rock, that maybe they weren't able to filter it out, and that's where that filter comes in. Not only for that, but over time, salt bins tend to generate crud around them. It's perfectly normal. Luckily with Tropic Marin, it doesn't happen as quickly because it's a very clean salt. But over time, it will build up. And when that happens, I don't want to be doing a water change in that piece of crud to fall on a coral, because I'm sure we have heard if you have some salt that falls on coral, you can burn it and it won't be good. So that's what that sediment filter also protects. If ever some of that crud does fall off of the wall of the tank, it's going to fall into the sediment. And then from that point it stops and we get totally clean water coming out of this automatic hose reel. But the main reason I got the hose reel, I'm sure we all have a super long extension cord or a garden hose. I mean, what's the main thing we hate about either of those? Is having to wind it up, right? Well, with this automatic hose reel, I'm able to pull it. Let's pretend I'm already at the tank. It holds that position there. It's already locked in that position. Let's say I'm done with my water change, give it a little tug, and it goes back, and I'm done. There's no need to wind it up whatsoever. One thing I do want to say is before I do perform a water change, there's obviously water that stays in the hose reel. There's no way to get it all out. I mean, there would be a way, just not easily. So what I'll do generally, let's say I'm going to do a water change right now and the water's ready to go. I would grab this, I'd pull it over to the utility sink. I'd let it run for about 30 seconds just to flush all the water that's been in there out, and then I would take it to the tank. Now, while we're on the topic here, this pump, this C-Chase 7.0 is able to push water 35 feet away from here. So my tank is anywhere from 30 to 35 feet. It's not going up any stairs. It's just kind of a straight run all the way to the tank. So if you guys are considering this pump, and maybe you're going under, I mean, honestly, you could go another 5 feet without a problem. But if you do have a tank that's maybe a shorter span, this is a pump that can surely get that job done. I think I covered everything. More importantly, I hope I know when I was looking to do these mixing containers, there was no video I found that really went into detail like I did today to explain this. I really hope there was, because there wasn't. I really only went on pictures and thinking about it a lot. Luckily, I can say I nailed it on the first time. I mean, a lot of that has to do with all the research I did. But I hope that with this video, you guys are able to see all this plumbing and be like, wait, I can totally replicate that. Now, if you do want to copy this setup, you could totally do it, or you can modify it. But feel free to modify this setup any way you want. Once you understand the concept of how it goes and how water mixes and how water goes from one to another, you can totally modify it, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot easier. For you guys that did stay till the very end, first and foremost, I want to thank you, because that's totally appreciated. You guys have no idea how much I appreciate all you guys that stay and watch to the very end. I actually have a question for each and every one of you. You guys that did stay, you have a treat here. So I've been considering doing, well, before that, for you to replicate this exact setup like I did it, you're talking close to, if not a little bit more than $1,500, this setup. Now, there's some people that can say, I have the money, I don't have the money. Or maybe there's someone that, I got the money, I just don't have the space. I can't fit something so big. Well, I got something for you. So I'd love for you guys to comment and let me know down below. I've been thinking about this actually pretty heavily, and I'm ready to pull the trigger to commit to doing something for you guys. So would you guys like to see a mixing station under $100 made? Obviously, it wouldn't be this big. It would probably be with 5-gallon bucket, or either a 10-gallon brute bucket. And we'd make it super affordable. I'd get everything from Lowe's and Home Depot. At that point, I would be able to give you guys a parts list. We'd go super cheap on as much as we could, but yet have it be something that's functional. So it wouldn't be, totally cheap where it doesn't work, but it'd be totally functional. So if that is something you guys would like to see, please let me know down below in the comments, because I've been thinking about doing it, but if there's not enough interest for it, I was like, why even do it? But if you guys do want to see that and I get enough interest and enough people commenting that they want to see it, I'd be all for doing that. So you guys can totally make something a lot more compact than this. Maybe it'll fit in a small corner like that. More importantly, I'm pretty sure we can do it under $100. So guys, that's going to be it for this video. If there's any links on Amazon for the stuff I bought, there's very little things. I got the hose reel. I did get that on Amazon. I got the float on Amazon, and I think that's all I got. Oh, I also got the sediment filter. So I'll do my best to provide links for you guys if you guys do want to check those out. So that's going to be it, guys. I thank you very much for watching. Be sure to leave that comment and let me know if you'd like to see a video on a scaled down version that's a lot more inexpensive. So guys, thank you very much for watching. As always, happy reefing.